Hi, I'm Darlene and welcome to my farm kitchen. We're right in the height of strawberry season and I canned quite a few jars of strawberry preserves over the weekend and I thought it was the perfect time to make biscuits. So I'm sharing with you a recipe that I have developed over the past few weeks, really been working on it, of a sourdough biscuit. On the weekends I bake on average between 10 and 15 loaves of sourdough for my market. And with that, I fill up quite a few weck jars with starter. And when I'm finished baking, I like to scrape all of that out of the jars, wash them well, and I store them for the next week. And with that, I have a little bit of discard in the bottom of each jar that I can use. These biscuits are good enough that I've actually been creating discard just to make my biscuits. And I'm really looking forward to sharing the recipe with you. These biscuits don't have any baking powder in them. I find the taste of baking powder on my palate to be very unpleasant. I don't know if it's the aluminum or what it is. But this is a nice flaky biscuit, really moist. It has a lightly sugar crust on it that you can either put on or not put on. I really like it for sweet and savory applications. And we're going to go ahead and get started. I weigh my ingredients. It just, I think, really ensures consistency. So with this recipe, I use an all-purpose flour. And I start with 225 grams of flour. Any chance I have to convert a recipe to grams, I really prefer that. Some people feel like it's a little finicky, but I think it really ensures a good, consistent product. I'm going to add 5 grams of baking soda and 4 grams of salt. I do use a salted butter in this recipe, so if you're using unsalted butter, you would want to just add a little bit more, but 4 grams really seems to be the right amount for what I like. And I'm going to add 30 grams of granulated sugar. So I've mixed all of my dry ingredients together in my bowl. And I'm going to pour this into a wide-based container. I'm going to add 230 grams of sourdough. It's quite a bit, but I have a lot of sourdough starter, like I said, left over after my weekend baking. I have made this with completely flattened out sourdough discard, and I've also done it with ripe starter, and it works either way. I've taken my scale back to 0. I'm adding 130 grams of full fat sour cream. At this point, I'm done with the scale, and I'm going to take my sour cream and my starter and I'm going to mix it up really well. This is the only wet ingredients I have in the biscuit. The baking soda seems to work really well just because, I guess, of the acidity of the sour cream. So you can see it's pretty sticky. I have my dry ingredients in a large sallow bowl. I'm going to stir that up, just incorporate the sugar and the salt and the baking soda. And I have a stick of butter in the freezer that I'm going to take out. So 1 stick of salted butter. I don't use a box grater, I just use my regular lemon zester. It makes the butter very fine. I grate it all over my flour mixture. Try to move your grater around a little bit so that you don't get a big pile of butter. I want it incorporated in all the flour, little teeny tiny bits. You certainly can use a box grater, but I encourage you to kind of keep stirring your flour with your butter occasionally. If you've watched any of my videos, I say it almost every one. As soon as I start taping, my old dog decides she's going to try to come in and be right in the midst of things with me, and she's pretty noisy, moaning and groaning. Okay, we're stirring once again. I don't want a big clump of butter. So let me just take and break that up. So this stick of butter isn't completely frozen. It's been in the freezer for 15-20 minutes. It does make grating it a little easier, and it also keeps your dough nice and cold. You don't want your butter to start melting before you get your biscuits made. I'm going to start adding my starter and my sour cream to this mixture. So what I'm going to do is just kind of fold this in with my fork. This starter is a little tight, not quite as thin as I have had it in the past, but like I said, it works no matter really what the starter's like. Okay. I'm going to just start folding that in. I'm just kind of squeezing the flour into the mixture, nice and quick. Picking up some of the loose flour and pushing it in. You can do this on a cutting board or your countertop if you'd like. I'm going to make sure I get all that wonderful butter in there. I'm not really kneading it as much as I'm just kind of folding it. So when it gets to this point, that's all I'm going to handle it. So I wrap this in film and put it in the refrigerator. And I'm going to let it stay in there for about 45 minutes while my oven preheats. And I'm going to set my oven temperature to 475. Okay, it's been 45 minutes. My oven should be good and hot. My dough's out of the refrigerator. It's nice and cold. It's still very pliable. I have a marble stone here to roll my dough out. You don't need that. You can roll it out on your wooden cutting board or countertop, whatever works for you. That feels good. Get this out of the way. And I'm going to put a little bit of bench flour on my surface. I'll put a little bit over to the side. Put my flour, give me this here. And I will lightly flour my rolling pin. And we're going to start rolling it out. So I just take and push and turn. I want these fairly thick. I usually shoot for about a 1/2 inch. I'm going to bake these on a 1/2 sheet pan. I have put them in an 8-inch round before, but this is the way I like it because they get brown all the way. I have a biscuit cutter that's 2.5 inches. Dip it in my flour. When I push this down, I don't turn the cutter because that will seal your edges. Once you get all your biscuits cut out, you're going to lightly rework the dough, but you want to be careful not to do that too much because it really changes the texture. I'm going to try not to add too much more bench flour because it does change the dough a little bit. So we're going to have 10 beautiful biscuits, and one that will be, I guess, for me. I like the little bit of a sugar on the top. It's really nice if you do something savory in the biscuit. Okay, and these are ready to go in the oven. I have it on 475. I'm going to set the timer for 20 minutes and I'm going to rotate the biscuits halfway through. Okay, it's been 16 minutes. Just for the sake of making sure I don't overcook these, I'm going to check the internal temperature. I like my baked goods all to have an internal temperature of about 200, and that's 207. So I let these cook for just about 16 minutes. All right, so we're going to sample our biscuit. First, we'll just take a peek at it. You can see it's nice and flaky, nice and moist inside. I don't want a dry biscuit. I'll take a little bit of butter. This actually came from a local dairy, and the butter is so good. I wish I'd had more because I would have used it to make the biscuits, but that wasn't in the cards today. And then some of my strawberry jam that I made yesterday. I've been experimenting with some Pomona's pectin. I like it. It's a learning curve for me. I usually don't use any pectin in my strawberry jam, but my husband does like it to set up just a little bit. Let's see. So this is a really nice biscuit. The one thing that I really like about it is, like I mentioned earlier in the video, for some reason baking powder and I don't get along. I just don't like that metallic taste on my tongue. And with this, it's just nothing but just pure flavor. You'd have a hard time telling it was a sourdough biscuit probably, but it's a great way to use discard. Very buttery, very flaky, and I highly recommend that you try it. I am super pleased with how this turned out. I really do appreciate you taking the time to watch the video, and I wish you all the success in your baking journey. I do my best to answer any responses that you may have. So if you start doing this and you run into an issue or they don't turn out the way you like, I certainly will try and help talk you through it. And if you'd like to see how I make sourdough bread, I have 2 videos loaded up on my channel, and I will link to the white sourdough. That seems to be the most popular. Thank you so much, and happy baking. Yum.